Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Easy Learn. And today's topic is algebra, within which we're going to be doing some expanding the brackets and then simplifying like terms. Without further ado, let's move on to today's questions. To begin with, we have a question 4, and then in brackets we have x plus 3, and then we have a minus 2x outside the bracket. Now, according to order of operations, you always solve the brackets first. Okay, according to the PEDMAS rule, that is PEDMAS. P refers to parentheses, E refers to exponents, for example, anything x to the power of 2, that 2 is basically referred to as exponent, D means division, M means multiplication, A means addition, and S means subtraction. So, according to these rules, we are supposed to be solving the P first, that is the parentheses. Now, in order to solve the parentheses, we need to know that 4 and a parentheses, and there's nothing in between. There's no plus, minus, division, anything. This means that there is a multiplication sign in between. Whenever you don't have anything in between a number or a variable or a bracket or anything, that means that there's an invisible multiplication sign in between, which means that you are supposed to be multiplying this 4 with everything that is inside the bracket. So the first thing that I'm going to do is this 4 times this x, then this 4 times this 3. It's important that you multiply the outside number with both the terms that are inside. You can't just do 4 times x, 4x, and then you just grab the 3 outside. You can't do that. When something is in parentheses, then any number that's outside has to be multiplied with both of them, which means that if I do 4 times x simply means it becomes 4x. Secondly, 4 times 3 means 4 times 3, refer to your times table, 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm going to write 12. Now, there's a plus sign in between, so I just grab it down the way it is, and 4x plus 12. 4 times 3 gives me 12. And then the next thing is minus 2x. So I'm just going to write down my minus 2x here. Now, what do I mean with like terms and unlike terms? Now, a number and a number are like terms to each other. For example, a 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all like terms to each other. They're from the same family, they belong to the same category. Similarly, if I have an A, B, C, D, these are not from the same family, although they're all letters, but they're different letters, so I can't do anything with them. These are unlike terms. A letter and a number, again, they're not the same. They're not from the same category, so they are unlike terms. If I have A, B, C, D, and another A, another B, then this A and this A are like terms to each other. They are from the same family. Similarly, if I take the B, I can't be referring the B to any other letter but just to B, which means that B and B are my like terms. Now, in this particular question, as you can see, there is a number 12. Now, this number 12 does not have any partner. There is no like term that could be connected with the 12 because the other two terms, both of them have an x with them. So, x and another x means that they belong to the same family. So, if you have something that belongs to the same family, those are referred to as like terms. And when you have like terms, you can simply solve, which means that if I have a 4x, I'm going to be doing 4x minus 2x because there's a minus sign before 2x. That means I gotta be doing 4 minus 2. 4 minus 2 gives me 2, and then x and x is just there. It just stays the way it is. 4x minus 2x gives me 2x, and then 12 stays the way it is, and I just write 2x plus 12. This is how you expand brackets, first of all, and then you simplify the like terms. By simplifying, we just mean that we either add or subtract the like terms. And what are like terms? Those that belong to the same family. Two same letters are like terms to each other. Two numbers are like terms to each other. This 12, I can't do 12 minus 2 as 10. I can't do that because 12 is not a family member of 2x because it has an x here, so it completely belongs to a different family. So I can't be doing a number with a variable. Now moving on, the next question. Now again, I have a 3a and then I have parentheses, which means there's multiplication sign in between, which means that I'm going to be doing 3a. First, I have to multiply with 2, and then 3a got to be multiplied with y. So 3a times 2. So 2 times 3 is 6, and a just comes the way it is, so it becomes 6a. Now 3a plus y, you've got to be multiplying it. So it's like this. It's like 3 times a times y. Basically, you're going to be multiplying all three of them together. 3 and a already, you know that they've become 3a outside there. So 3a times y means just the y also gets attached with it, and it becomes 3ay. So now I have, and there's a plus sign here, so I'm going to be taking out the plus sign the way it is. So 6a plus 3ay. Now 6a plus 3ay, and here I have another 2a, so I'm going to be writing it down the way it is. Now again, which family members are the same? Now, as you can see, with the 3, I have a, but I also have a y, which means that 3ay is not a family member either to 6a or to 2a. 3ay just stays alone because it doesn't have its family member here. But 6a and 2a, they both belong to the category A or the letter A, so they're from the same family, which means I can simply do 6 plus 2, and 6 plus 2 gives me 8, and a just stays the way it is. So 6a plus 2a means I have 8a. Now 8a plus 3ay I can just write it down the way it is, and my final answer is this long equation that says 8a plus 3ay. Moving on, now 7b, b, and 2. So again, the 7b multiplies with the b, and then the 7b again multiplies with the 2. Now 7b times b, which means that it's 7 times the b, which is already there as 7b, times another b. Now 1b and 2b's, so 2b's together, you write them as an exponent power, and you just write it down as b squared, or b to the power of 2. 2b's multiplied together become b to the power of 2. If there were 3b's, I would say b to the power of 3. If there were 4b's, I would say b to the power of 4. But right now, I just have 2b's, so I'm going to be writing 7b squared, or you can say 7b to the power of 2, because there are 2b's involved. Now, the second one is 7b times 2. So 7b times 2 means I just got to be multiplying the 2 with the 7, and 2 times 7 gives me 14, and then 14 times b again stays b. So I have a 7b squared, and then there's a plus sign in between, so I can just grab it down the way it is, and then I got a 14b, so it comes out like that. Now 7b squared plus 14b. Now moving on, putting everything together, and now there's also a minus 5b squared, so I'm going to be writing 7b squared plus 14b minus 5b squared. Now I have to figure out which ones are my like terms. Now all of them have a b with them, but if you notice, this one is just a one single b, these ones are two b's, which means that the 14b is not a family member of 7b squared, is not a family member of 5b squared. It's different, it's completely alone, it has no family member, which means that 7b squared and 5b squared, now both of them have a b squared attached to it, which means that they are family. They're like terms. So I'm just going to be doing 7 minus 5. So 7 minus 5 gives me 2. And then the b square just comes the way it is. So 7 minus 5 gives me 2b squared plus 14b. So this is how I expand and simplify this problem, and my answer, my final result, is going to be 2b squared plus 14b. Moving on. Now, these are a little complicated questions, or more than complicated, it's just a little lengthy, but the concept, the basic values are the same. Now, again, there's a 6 here, there's a multiplication in between, which means 6 multiplied with 2w and 6 multiplied with 5. So 6 times 2 gives me 12w, 6 times 5 gives me a 30. Secondly, I have another 9 here, again, multiplication in between, 9 times a w, I just keep writing them down the way they are. So a plus 9 times w means a plus 9w, and then 9 times a positive 2 means 9 times 2 is 18. I grab the plus sign the way it is, 9 times 2, 18. Now, here's an interesting one. Now, this time we don't have anyone who's alone. We have pairs of 2, which means here, if there is a w, the family member the 12w belongs to is 9w, because there is a w attached to both of them. Similarly, here I have a number that is 30, And another family member of 30 is 18 because both of them have a number with them. There's a number, there's no variable attached, nothing else attached, which means both of them belong to each other, and 12W and 9W belong to each other. So now, first thing I'm going to be doing, what is 12 times 12 plus 9? So 9, 10, 11, and then I have 1 plus 1, 2. So 12 plus 9 gives me a 21, and the W just attaches the way it is. And then I have a 30 and an 18, so I'm going to do 30 plus 18, 8 plus 0, 8, 3 plus 1, 4. So my answer is 48. So I have a 21W plus a 48. That is supposed to be my final equation, my final answer. 21W plus 48. I can't do anything further to that because they're both from a different family. One has a W with it and one is just a number. So I cannot be doing anything further to that. I just leave it the way it is. Unless somebody asks me to solve the equation and find the value of W, then that comes later. We're going to be discussing that thing in the later videos. For now, we just keep it till here. Now, the next one, again, the same thing, n times n, and then n times negative 4. So n times n is like n multiplied by n. Now, when there are two n's, as I told you, we write them as a power, that is n to the power of 2 because there are two n's. So n square over here, and then we have n times minus 4. So minus 4 times n means you just write minus 4n. A minus is, it's important to write the minus. Do not forget about that because here there's a plus, an invisible plus, because there's no sign mentioned, so it means it's a positive. So a positive multiplied with a negative always gives you a negative answer. So we have n squared minus 4n. Similarly, now I have minus n with a 5. So minus n times 5. Again, if I'm doing minus n times positive 5, so a minus multiplied by a plus is always a minus. So minus n times 5 gives me a minus 5n. The next thing I have minus n times minus n. Now minus n times minus n means there is a negative multiplied with a negative. The answer is always going to be positive. So first thing I should know is that negative n times negative n means a positive. And positive what? There are two n's here. So again, as I told you, when you have two n's, you just take it as a power. So n to the power of 2, which means in this particular equation, n squared minus 4n minus 5n plus another n squared. Now this is my second last step. Now, before moving on to the last step, I got to figure out which ones my like terms and which ones are the unlike terms. So now n square, n to the power of 2 obviously is a like term or a family member of n to the power of 2. So if there's no number attached, it means that it's always 1. There's an invisible 1 with these. So a 1 plus a 1 gives me 2. So n squared plus n squared means 2n squared. Again, remember, whenever there is no number attached, it's always a 1 attached with it. There's an invisible 1, which means a 1 plus 1 is a 2. And this negative 4n and negative 5n, they are like terms to each other. Now, we've also discussed in our previous video that if there's a negative and another negative, so what do we do? Now, because we're dealing with addition and subtraction, so when there's a negative with another negative, you always add. You always add the numbers, but the resulting answer is always in negative, which means that I'm going to be doing 4 plus 5. 4 plus 5 gives me a 9, but because I'm doing negative and negative, the answer is supposed to be negative 9. When we're dealing with multiplication, it's a little different. A negative multiplied with a negative is a positive. But when we're dealing with addition and subtraction, a negative with a negative, you add them up, but the sign remains negative. So 4 plus 5 is a negative 9. And because there is an n attached to it, so negative 9n. So my final answer becomes 2n squared minus 9n. That's how I figure out my answers. That's how I simplify. First you multiply, then you get down your basic equations that you're getting, and then you figure out the like terms, and then you add them up, subtract them up, whatever is required, you do that, and you get a one single equation in the end. Moving on. Now again, another little complicated question. So minus 8c times 8, again, you multiply. So there's a minus multiplied by the plus it's always a negative answer. 8 times 8 is 64, and then C is just there, so you just write it down. 8 times 8, 64C. And now again, minus 8C times minus 3A. Now you gotta be doing it carefully. It's a minus 8, let's say, times C, then times minus 3 times A. In multiplication, there is nothing such as like terms or unlike terms. Whatever has to be multiplied is just multiplied with each other. So 8 times C, negative 8 times C, negative 8C, and then negative 8C times negative 3. 8 3 is 24, and then there's a negative and a negative, which means a negative multiplied by a negative becomes a positive, and then a positive 24C with the A means that positive 24AC, right? So 8 times 3 is a 24, negative and negative makes it a positive, and A times C just makes it AC, which means that after my 64C minus 64C, I'm going to be writing plus 24AC. And then the next step is minus 3 times positive 4. A minus multiplied with a plus always gives me a minus, and then minus 3 times 4, 3 times 4, refer to your timetable, and then 3 times 4 is 12, and then minus 3 times minus C. So again, minus 3 and a minus C. So a minus and a minus always gives you a positive, and 3 times C means just 3C. So I'm going to be writing minus 64C plus 24AC minus 12 plus 3C. Now, here's the interesting part. 24AC does not have a family member because there's no other number or no other object that has AC with it, which means 24AC stays alone. Now, interestingly, minus 12 also stays alone because there's nobody who shares the same thing as a minus 12. There's no other number that is a number. It's a numerical value, nobody else. Only the 12 is a number. And then we have a 3C, which has a family member, 64C, which means I can only do 64 and 3. I can only do any kind of operation on these two things. I can't be doing 12 plus 3. I can't be doing 24 minus 12. I can't do all of that because 24AC belongs to a different family, negative 12 belongs to a different family. The same family is negative 64 plus 3. Now again, you should know that when we are dealing with a negative and a positive in addition and subtraction, so we subtract the two numbers, and after we subtract, the sign always has to be of the bigger number. Whichever is your big number, you will take that sign, big number sign basically. So which means that out of 64 and 3, first thing I got to be subtracting it. So 64 minus 3, 4 minus 3 is 1, and 6 comes down as it is, 61. Now which one is the bigger number? 64 is big or 3 is big? So 64 is bigger, and 64 has a negative sign, which means my answer, that is 61, should also have a negative sign. That's the basic general plus and minus rules for addition and subtraction. When there is a negative and a positive, you always subtract, and then you check out the bigger number sign. Whatever the big number has the sign, the answer has the same sign. So now I have a negative 61. Now, and also there's a C attached, so my final answer becomes negative 61C plus 24AC minus 12. 24AC and negative 12 stay the way they are. Just I have to do 64 minus 3, the sign of the bigger number, so negative 61, and my final answer is negative 61C plus 24AC minus 12. Now, this is another huge one. So 4C and 3C, you multiply them. So again, there's a 4 times a C times a 3 times another C. Now 4 times 3 gives me a 12, and C times C, which means that there are two C's, so I take it as a power, C to the power of 2. So the first thing becomes 12C squared. Now secondly, I have a 4C multiplied with a minus C squared, which means there's a 4 multiplied by a C on the outside, and inside I have a minus C square. So let me just keep the minus sign the way it is because nothing can happen with the minus sign, because there's a positive outside, and positive multiplied by a negative always gives you a negative. Now after that I have C squared, which means I already have two C's inside. So a 4 multiplied with a C, C, and C, because there are two C's inside and one C outside, so in total they make up three C's. So which means 4 c to the power of 3. When there were 2 c's, I put a power of 2. Now there are 3 c's, so I put a power of 3. And because there's a positive outside and negative inside, a positive multiplied by a negative gives me a negative, so I have 12c squared minus 4c cubed. It's called cubed. Now the next part is 22c squared and a 4. So again, when I deal with that, so minus 2c squared with a 4 means that a minus 2 times a c squared means times c times another 4. Now a negative number and a positive number, which means the answer has to be negative. A positive multiplied with a negative, the answer is always going to be negative. Now 2 times 4 gives me 8, and c times c gives me a c squared. Now the next thing, 2c squared with 5c. Now again, I have a minus 2 times c, another c, because outside I have c squared, which means I have 2 c's, and then on the inside I have a negative 5 and a positive c. So multiplied with a negative 5 and another c. Now again, I'm going to be doing 2 times 5. Now here, it's interesting because we have negative 2 and negative 5. So a negative multiplied by a negative always gives a positive answer. So negative 2 times negative 5 gives me positive 10. And then I have a c and another c and another c, which means I have 3 c's. So I'm going to be writing 10c cubed because the 3 c's, so c to the power of 3. Now, these are my two chunks, that is 12c squared minus 4c cubed, and then 8c squared plus 10c cubed. Now, in these two chunks, now I got to figure out my like terms. So my c squared is going to be my like term with another c squared, and my c cubed is the like term with this one with the 10c cubed, and then which means I can add and subtract on my like terms. So now I have a 12c squared minus 8c squared. So I'm going to be doing 12 minus 8. That gives me 4, and then c squared just comes the way it is. So I have a 4c squared, and here I have a minus 4c cubed plus a 10c cubed, which means 10, there's a negative and a positive. So again, I'm going to be subtracting, and then 10 minus 4 gives me a 6. And the sign of the bigger number means that 10 has a positive sign, and 10 is my bigger number. So I take the positive sign, and 10 minus 4 was 6. So I write 6c cubed. So my answer becomes 4c squared plus 6c cubed. 4c to the power of 2 plus 6c to the power of 3. So this is how I deal with questions like these. We're just going to be very careful that how many c's are we dealing with. If there are 2 c's, power of 2. If there are 3 c's, then power of 3. Then you put things together, then you look for the like terms, and then you solve the like terms, and then you get your final answer. So the answer for this one is 4c squared plus 6c cubed. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching Easy Learn, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. If you have any questions, any confusions, anything you want to share, you can drop them down in the comment section below. See you and take care until next time.